Welcome back, everyone. In this video, you're going to learn how to disassemble and reassemble a TriStar Raptor shotgun. The gauge doesn't matter. It could be a 12 gauge all the way down to a 410. If it's a TriStar Raptor, this video will work. First, remove the barrel nut. There's your barrel nut. Set that aside. Pull out your plug. Set that aside. Now what you're going to do is you're going to firmly grasp the foregrip and pull it away from the action. If the barrel starts to come off with it, that's okay. Just wiggle it until that foregrip comes off. Now that the foregrip is off, grab the barrel, do the same thing, pull it away from the action. It should pull off pretty easily. Next, you'll need to remove your bolt assembly. In order to do that, you have to remove the bolt handle. So push the bolt back a little bit to release the pressure, and then you're going to see that this bolt slides forward and backwards. You have to line it up perfectly with the groove underneath in order for that bolt handle to pull out. So once it's lined up, it'll pull straight out, no problems. There's your bolt handle. Now your bolt assembly is just going to slide right off with the spring. That'll pull off really easily, and then your bolt will lift straight up off of the mount that it's on. And there's your bolt, and there's your bolt slide. At this point, you can pull off your magazine spring, just slide it forward, set it to the side. Now that all that's done, you're ready to remove your trigger assembly. There's a little pin right here that's holding the whole trigger assembly in. You can use a small screwdriver, a cleaning rod, or just a piece of metal like what I'm using here to pop that out. A little bit of pressure, it'll come out the other side. And it's actually multi-directional, so it doesn't matter which side you push it out, it'll come out. That is your trigger assembly retaining pin. Now the trigger assembly needs to be pushed forward to create a small gap right here. So take your thumb, push it forward, create that gap, and it'll pull right out. And there's your trigger assembly removed. And that is the full disassembly of the TriStar Raptor. You're ready to clean, do whatever maintenance you need to do, and then we'll get started with the reassembly. First, the trigger assembly is going to go back in, but the first thing I want you to take note of is this bolt release button right here. You're going to have to press that in order to get your bolt assembly to sit properly. So set it in there. Remember, there's going to be that gap on the back side whenever you set it in. And so instead of pushing it forward, you're going to push it backwards to close that gap while holding the bolt release the entire time. If you don't hold that bolt release, you're not going to be able to get that back in. Now line up your trigger assembly so that you can see daylight all the way through where your trigger assembly retaining pin goes. Right there, it's perfectly lined up. That trigger assembly retaining pin should slide right in. If you get a little bit of pressure when you're putting that in, you can use a small hammer or a screwdriver or something to hit it with to get it to go all the way in. The more rounds you've put through the TriStar, the easier this pin's going to be to get in. If it's a new weapon, you can expect to have to use something to push it through all the way, like I'm doing here. Now that your trigger assembly's back in there, you can put your magazine spring back on. Now you can take your bolt slide, sometimes referred to as the action bar, and set your bolt back right on top of it. Make sure it's facing the right direction. Just like the spring, it's going to slide over. You're going to push it down into the receiver, and then you're going to have to hold it in place so that you can put that bolt handle back in. Just like before, that bolt's going to slide back and forth, and these grooves need to be lined up perfectly in order to get your bolt handle to sit right. Once it's lined up like that, grab your bolt handle, make sure it's facing the right direction. It should go in pretty easy, and then you can release the bolt. Now you can put your plug back in. Just make sure it's flush. Your barrel's going to go on next. Slide it over that magazine. You may need to compress the bolt a little bit to create a groove for it to go through, but you don't pull the bolt all the way back, otherwise it won't sit. You're just going to pull it back about an inch, and your barrel will slide right in. Then take your foregrip, slide it back over your magazine. Once you have that seated nicely, take your barrel nut and screw it back on just hand tight. Once your barrel nut is all the way back on, that is the full reassembly of your TriStar Raptor, and you're ready for a functions check. In order to functions check the TriStar Raptor, first thing that you're going to do, put the weapon on fire, rack it to the rear, squeeze the trigger should fall. Rack it again, the bolt should stick back, press the release button, it should slide forward. And that is the full disassembly, reassembly, and functions check of the TriStar Raptor. I hope y'all enjoyed the video today. If you learned something, like and subscribe to our channels, and we look forward to seeing y'all next time.